As he hangs in excruciating pain on the cross, Jesus knows that now it is finished. He's no longer busy taking care of people, putting his mother together with the beloved disciple to take care of each other after he's gone. He's also been assuring the repentant thief at his side that he will join him in paradise. No, he's finished taking care of other people. Right now it's just Jesus, feeling abandoned, forsaken, alone, and thirsty. Can you remember a time that you were so thirsty that it hurt? It's in those moments that we feel terribly vulnerable and needy. And yet I doubt we will ever experience the kind of thirst that Jesus did on the cross. He said, "I am thirsty." And they held this sour wine-soaked sponge at the end of a stick up to his mouth, his cracked, dry lips. May have given him a moment of relief to have something wet, but that sharp smell and taste of the sour vinegar must have stung. So Jesus is physically, humanly thirsty, yes, but maybe there's something more he's thirsting for there. Maybe he, an innocent person, if there ever was one, was thirsting for justice after being treated so unjustly. Or perhaps he's thirsting for God's presence. We can tell from several of his last words in this account and the other Gospels that the Psalms are running through Jesus' mind. And now in this moment, maybe Psalm 63 comes to his memory to offer him some spiritual sustenance. "O God, you are my God. I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you, as in a dry and weary land where there is no water." Or maybe Psalm 42, "As a deer longs for flowing streams, my soul longs for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When shall I come and behold the face of God?" So Jesus, facing the end of his human life, yearns with every beaten and bloody fiber of his body to behold once again the face of his Father. He thirsts for hope. He thirsts for justice. He thirsts for the presence of God. And as we come to the end of this 40-day season of penitence and reflection, what are we thirsting for? Are we thirsty for God's justice in the land? Are we thirsty for God's presence? Do our dry hearts yearn for spiritual refreshment from God's flowing streams? We've all been at places in our lives when we are at our physical and emotional and spiritual limits. We don't know what the future holds, but we're forced to trust God in that process, just as Jesus is now doing on the cross. Maybe you're waiting prayerfully but anxiously as a loved one slowly dies from some illness or dementia. Maybe your job situation suddenly isn't as certain as you thought it was. Or maybe you're taking life a day at a time, an hour at a time, as you try to cope with a loved one battling addiction or some other issue. Once, a few years ago, I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I knew it was going to be a very busy day. And as I was making my coffee, I checked my phone. And there was a text message from someone very close to me. It was sent late the night before, long after I'd gone to bed. The text read, "I'm sorry it's so late, but it's an emergency. Can you call me? Or I'll call you at 7:30 in the morning." Well, I knew that she'd been going through some difficult times, but I had no idea what this meant. What was this emergency? It couldn't be good, but it's a great way to start the day. Well, as soon as I read that text, I texted her back to call me as soon as she could. Well, I had an early appointment that morning at my eye doctor's. I live in Midtown. And as I was walking down the street to Emory Midtown Hospital, it was a frigid, cold, overcast morning, and my emotions were churning. Fear and confusion, frustration of not knowing what was going on. I also realized how thirsty I was. It's amazing how thirsty anxiety can make you. Well, as I walked into that grim blanket of clouds, I turned the corner, and in between two buildings was one of the buildings had a big sign on it that said emergency, which I thought was pretty fitting. But as I walked around that corner, what I saw was one of the most beautiful sunrises that I'd ever seen. It's amazing how encouraging a few orange and purple clouds can be. It was a glimpse of hope. Well, I walked into the Emory Hospital building and past the beautiful aviaries that they have there. And I paused just a moment to watch these birds singing and flying and flitting around. And I was remembering Jesus' words about how the birds of the air don't worry about anything, so why should you? Another glimpse of hope. Well, I kept walking down the hallway to the tower elevators, and I passed a young woman sitting at a table with a Bible open. She was reading a Bible. And just seeing that Bible gave me a glimpse of hope. All these glimpses of hope in the midst of the pain and the fear and the confusion. And when I finally did get to talk to my loved one, well, it wasn't good news, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. Beloved, our own seasons of waiting and hoping and thirsting last far longer than the 40 days of Lent, don't they? But like Jesus, we can confess our utter thirst for God, our yearning for a glimpse of the holy in the midst of that pain and fear. Now, we know how this Lent is going to end. Spoiler alert, Jesus lives. And that gives us hope. We may not know when or how our own dry season of waiting and hoping will end, but as Jesus thirsts for the promised presence of God, so do we. And be assured, this is a promise God will fulfill. John captures a sneak preview of this fulfilled promise in Revelation chapter 21. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "See, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them as their God. They will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away." And the one who was seated on the throne said, "It is done. It is finished. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water as a gift from the spring of the water of life. Those who conquer will inherit these things, and I will be their God, and they will be my children." So on this Good Friday, like Jesus, we too thirst for hope, for justice, for resurrection. Like Jesus, we thirst for God's healing presence in our own pain-racked lives. Our souls are parched and dry for it. God willingly gives it abundantly and fully, beyond our possibility even to endure it. God will quench Jesus' thirst on Easter Day, and God will quench our holy thirst too, now and forever.